What if a team doesn't want to trade down to 3 with you? What if they know that you want to trade down and they're like, hey, you figure it out. You take Scoot and we're going to take Brandon Miller, or we're going to take Amin Thompson or whatever. Like, I think that's my biggest fear. We talked about it before we went live. Like, what if a team knows that you want to trade down and they're not willing to give you anything or, trade? Then you're stuck with 3 guards.
Yeah, and imagine like you run this lineup for one season, you realize, oh crap, this is not going to work. Like even long term, these 3 just don't fit together. And we're not maximizing their talent and their potential with all 3 of these guys in the lineup. So now we're forced to trade one of these guys. Teams are going to know that, and you're not going to get the best trade package or the best value for any of these guys. It just doesn't work that way. And by the way, I looked up the 2019 Raptors. It was Danny Green and Norman Powell and Patrick McCaw, if you want to go that deep on the lineup.
Okay, yeah. It can work. Like, dude, it can work. But, like, it's like you have to bank on Scoot's development being similar to Jaden Ivey's, where I think the same comps were kind of being thrown out that Jaden Ivey couldn't shoot, and he turned into a great 3-point shooter this year. That's what you have to kind of bank on, and you're going to have to move Scoot to point guard because obviously he wants to be the lead guard. He's a ball-dominant guard. Obviously, like I said, we've seen Jaden Ivey play the 2. Cade has the size to play the 3. I think theoretically that's the only way it's going to work, and then you're going to have your 2 bigs out there.
But don't you think, though, moving Cade to the 3 and asking him to play off of those 2, it kind of takes away the best parts of his game? That's what I think. I could be wrong. Dude, I'm just a podcast host. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just giving my opinions on this stuff. I don't know, but it just seems like Cade at the 3 just doesn't maximize his talent and his potential. I've seen some people compare him to Jason Tatum. They're different players, though. Jason Tatum is more of a scorer. Cade is one of those guys that you can legitimately run the offense through, and he can make everybody around him better. If he's healthy and he's playing up to his peak potential, and he could probably carry any team to the playoffs. That's how much faith I have in Cade. But also, I've asked this before. How big is the gap between Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller? I just want to know. I just want someone to answer that for me because I'm in the school of thought that Scoot Henderson is not a generational talent. I looked this up the other day, and I came across a lot of blogs, and most of them said, and I'm not kidding you, this is what they said, Scoot Henderson is a generational player because he's a supercharged Derrick Rose. What the fuck does that even mean? What does a supercharged Derrick Rose even mean? Seriously, what does that – I don't get it. So, but if you are comparing him to Derrick Rose, you also have to look, the peak was great. Youngest MVP ever. Unfortunately, the career was cut short by injuries. Look at Steve Francis. Look at Baron Davis. Super talented athletic point guards. Look at John Morant right now. He's hurt. He's out of – I don't know how long he's going to be out. But he's a high flyer. He's a super athletic guard. These guys have a short shelf life in the NBA. I almost said the NFL. But, Derrick Rose is still on a roster, but he's a shell of his former self. I get that he's a little bit older, but a guy that was MVP at 22 could have extended his career if he would have just had to play a more efficient game. But I think it's hard for these guys that are so explosive and, so used to attacking the rim with so much power that they do. It's hard to get away from that because that's what's always worked. So I'm willing to say this. Scoot Henderson will probably look like the best player probably 2 years from now. I just don't know how long he's going to be the best player. I think it could also be, and I don't wish this on him. I'm going to say that very loud, and I'm going to make that very clear. I just think it's one of these things where you're going to see his peak, and it's going to be a high peak, and everybody's going to be like, man, he should have went over Victor Wembanyama. But then it's just going to, die down like it does with a lot of these athletic guards. I don't know. That's just my take.
Yeah, like I said, I think to your question, what makes him generational? What makes him generational is he's in that archetype of Derrick Rose, who changed the game as we know it. Russell Westbrook, who's still competing at a high level, who dropped 30 points in the playoffs today.
Oh, he's not even a human, though.
John Morant. I mean, I comped him to Baron Davis, who, if you guys know who Baron Davis is, hell of an NBA player. I think that's why so many of these bloggers and the guys that write these NBA draft articles have him as a generational point guard, because he's one of those guys that you're going to see on SportsCenter for the next 10 years. He's just going to be super athletic, dunking on everybody, just makes really smart basketball plays. But to your point with the 3-guard lineup, I think I've told you before, like, Detroit's not really in a position to draft for fit, in my opinion, because you just won 17 wins.
It's true.
And you look at this free agency class, and it's not great. There's a lot of restricted free agents, and you're gonna have to throw a shitload of money at like Cam Johnson's or whatever if you want like players like that. Like, if I'm the Pistons, I'm gonna draft the best player available and just see how it works out. Like, if it works out with Scoot, great. If it doesn't, his trade value is not going to diminish. Like, you could draft him and say, you know what, this isn't working out. Like, shit, Chauncey Billups got traded right after he got drafted. I think maybe 3-4 months after he got drafted. Guy got traded multiple times until, he found the home in Detroit, right? I know he's probably not a good example, even though he was a high lottery pick, but it happens. I just think you have to take the best player available, in my personal opinion. I get to your point, 3-guard lineups don't really work unless you have one of them coming off the bench as kind of like that 6-man role. But we all know Jaden Ivey probably doesn't want to come off the bench. Cade probably doesn't want to come off the bench. He would if it was for the betterment of the team. But I think you just got to take the best player available and just figure it out later. Maybe you can trade them, 6 months to a year from now. Maybe you could possibly trade down if a team doesn't know that you want to trade them. But it doesn't help that, you got bloggers out there saying Brandon Miller's the second best prospect in the NBA draft. So,
well, that's another point, too. Like, if we're talking best player available, why are we not talking about, like, Brandon Miller being the best player available? Like, I mean, again, dude, we're talking about a 6'8", two-way guy. He can play. I think he can play off of Cade and Jaden Ivey. It is a little bit about fit, but let's not sit here and act like the gap between these two players is this, like, huge. It's just not. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Scoot is a phenomenal player, but like I said, we have seen athletic point guards like him before, and every time they come out, it's always like, man, they're going to change the game. They all play the same way. Like, again, I'm not trying to disrespect Scoot, dude. He's an incredible basketball player. And if Jaden Ivey looked like shit in his rookie year, I would be all over him. If I had more question marks about Cade's health, and I still have a few, and I didn't think his body would hold up, yeah, I would say draft Scoot because let's get a franchise player. But I'm confident that Cade will get healthy and he will stay healthy and the injuries will be a minimum. I'm confident that that's going to happen because I feel like you have to be. So I just think drafting Scoot to the Detroit Pistons, it also could eventually set them up for failure and push them back a few years.